Langley, 2009. 2 minutes to closing. Fuel in the air. Rain on the asphalt. A pickup rolled under the Thunderbird mall sign and stopped. 40 rounds punched through its frame before the engine even stalled. The shooter never looked at the body, never waited for sirens. He walked away from 40 bullet holes like someone finishing a shift, not fleeing the scene. Witnesses said it felt mechanical. Clinical precision where chaos should have been. The man behind it wasn't a ghost. He was a planner, methodical, patient, operating inside British Columbia's most violent decade. When the smoke cleared, the United Nations gang had a new name at the top, Conor D'Monte, and his trail would vanish across borders, oceans, and years. But here's the question no one could answer. Was he running from the law, or from something he'd built that no longer needed him? Missed the button? Go ahead. Subscribe now so you don't forget later. He was born January 8, 1978, on Vancouver's quiet west side, far from the gunfire his name would later command. By the time he turned 30, Conor Vincent D'Monte had more than one name. Police records listed them like chapters: Brian Black, Manuel Nico Ortega, Leonard Gordon Douglas. Each alias was built for one thing: distance. Forensics noted his tattoos: Chinese characters on the right shoulder, Conrock inked on the left, a tiger and dragon across his back. Symbols of balance and war. He'd tell people they were about discipline. Investigators said they were about control. By the late 1990s, Vancouver's underworld was changing. Traditional biker clubs were losing ground to something quieter, more multicultural, more profitable. That something was the United Nations gang, founded in 1997 by Clay Ruesch. It wasn't a name, it was a philosophy. 200 members, European, East Asian, Persian, and First Nations backgrounds. No colors, no flags, just product and profit. The UN moved cocaine and ecstasy across borders with the precision of a logistics company. Clean routes, coded phones, encrypted handoffs. And when Ruesch was arrested in 2008, caught flying into Mexico on an Interpol flag, the vacuum didn't stay empty. D'Monte stepped in, quietly, efficiently. He wasn't loud, he wasn't reckless, he was a coordinator. The kind who could move 10 people without one of them realizing who was giving orders. Detectives later described him as a man who ran meetings like operations. Every table he sat at became a map. Within months, D'Monte controlled a network stretching from Vancouver's lower mainland to Kelowna, Calgary, and Mexico. He spoke rarely, listened always, and never carried a phone registered in his name. People inside the gang said he had an unusual calm, the kind that unnerved even his own men. He didn't blink. One former associate told CFSEU officers, like he was always 6 moves ahead. He earned the nickname the Planner, not because he drew blueprints, but because nothing around him ever happened by accident. He organized shipments the way others wrote budgets: clean margins, silent partnerships, predictable returns. The same order that built his fortune would soon paint a target on his back. Because in the criminal economy, structure breeds envy. And loyalty? That's just another kind of currency. How long can a man build an empire before the people who helped him start asking for their share? By 2005, Vancouver's underworld had fractured. The United Nations gang ran like a corporation. The Red Scorpions, led by the Bacon brothers, moved like a startup with nothing to lose. Each wanted market share. Neither wanted peace. Detectives later called it a shadow war. To the public, it looked like random shootings. To police, it was a map of revenge. One coded in bullets and unfinished business. By 2007, drive-bys turned into executions. Every week brought another hit, another suspect, another coded message across encrypted Blackberries. Phones that couldn't be cracked. Servers that couldn't be traced. But someone was coordinating the chaos. Someone with structure. Investigators found pattern where others saw violence. Targets weren't random, they were methodical. Former associates say Conor D'Monte handled it like a spreadsheet. Every move had a purpose, every silence a signal. Then came May 9, 2008. Jonathan Barber, 24 years old, was installing an audio system in Jamie Bacon's Porsche Cayenne in Burnaby. The shooters thought Bacon was inside. Barber never had a chance. Over a dozen rounds hit the car. He died before paramedics arrived. His girlfriend, sitting in another vehicle, was hit but survived. That shooting changed everything. The war wasn't theoretical anymore. It had collateral. Within days, CFSEUBC analysts intercepted fragments of digital chatter, encrypted exchanges between UN and Red Scorpion intermediaries. Each line looked like nonsense, until it didn't. BBM traffic, one officer called it, a whole network whispering in code. The investigation named Corey Valley as the gunman in the Barber hit, and D'Monte as the strategist. According to Crown filings, both were part of a conspiracy to murder the Bacon brothers and dismantle their Red Scorpion stronghold. Forensics placed cell tower pins near known Red Scorpion safe houses. The same devices appeared hours before other ambushes in Langley, Abbotsford, and Coquitlam. One tower pattern matched the route to the scene of Kevin Leclerc's murder a year later. Not proof, but proximity. Police used that data to connect dots across 4 cities. Each lead pointed back to the same man, the one who never carried his own phone, D'Monte. He wasn't firing the guns. He was moving the pieces, coldly, cleanly, and without leaving fingerprints. By 2009, the city's tension was visible. Unmarked police cars on every block, media vans parked outside gang-linked gyms, bodyguards shadowing the Bacons. Every night felt like a countdown. Each daylight calm, a pause before the next body hit the pavement. Detectives believed the UN had shifted from protection to retaliation. But inside the gang, there was talk of something else: betrayal, information leaks, a name passed from one side to the other, and a hit list with one name circled twice. Cool leaks in a world where silence is survival. And what happens when a strategist realizes one of his own is feeding the enemy? February 6, 2009. Langley, British Columbia. Evening traffic rolled through Thunderbird Mall. A white truck idled near the storefronts. Seconds later, gunfire turned the parking lot into a grid of flashing metal and glass. Kevin Leclerc, once a UN loyalist, now a Red Scorpion, was the target. He defected months earlier, taking secrets with him. 44.223 caliber casings were recovered near the truck. Tight grouping, close range. The weapon, a high-powered assault rifle. The message, final. Witnesses recalled the hit as surgical. No shouting, no chaos, just impact. And according to later court testimony, the shooter Corey Valley received a single message seconds afterward. 3 words, traced to Conor D'Monte. Traitor, got it. Police called it a professional hit. Investigators called it confirmation. The conspiracy wasn't rumor anymore. It was structure. For the next 2 years, CFSEUBC built their case brick by brick. Intercepted messages, travel records, testimony from insiders who wanted out before they ended up next. Each thread pointed back to one man, the planner who never pulled the trigger. By January 2011, the charges landed. First-degree murder and the death of Kevin Leclerc. Conspiracy to murder the Bacon brothers and their Red Scorpion associates. The indictment didn't shock anyone who'd been watching the war. It just made one thing clear: the walls were finally closing in. Quick reminder: if you're still watching, ask yourself one thing. Who gave the order? 2 months later, April 1, 2011, D'Monte quietly returned to Burnaby. No convoy, no attention. Just a single visit to a Metro Town law office. There, he signed over his $1.6 million home to his wife, Jennifer Call. The transaction went through without a trace of hesitation. Then, he disappeared. He'd erased his name before the police could. Not in panic, in precision. Because panic leaves footprints. Planning erases them. Detectives searched for travel manifests, flight data, wire transfers, nothing. It was as if he'd stepped off the grid into a world that had been waiting for him. According to RCMP investigators, His departure was timed almost perfectly. Days before new warrants, weeks before Interpol updates. He knew. Somehow he always knew. Inside the UN ranks, rumors surfaced. Someone had tipped him off. Someone close enough to hear the charges coming, before they were public. And someone powerful enough to make sure no one ever admitted it. When the Burnaby house sold, it wasn't just property changing hands. It was an identity, wiped clean, notarized, and gone. Then, silence. Did he flee because he was guilty? Or because someone else had already decided his fate? The charges landed. And then, he vanished. No flight manifest. No exit stamp. One day, Conor Vincent D'Monte was in British Columbia. The next, he was a ghost. Investigators pieced together fragments. Border whispers, bank trails, digital shadows, but nothing that said where. The theory, he'd slipped through Central America using false papers. Interpol issued a red notice, calling him armed, organized, and unpredictable. Years passed. The war he'd built faded into legend. But his name didn't. It was printed on every BOLO list in the country. And in 2019, BOLO Canada raised the stakes, $100,000 for any information leading to his arrest. Then silence again, until February 25, 2022. Isla Verde, Puerto Rico. A humid night. Lights from the highway reflecting off wet asphalt. A white Ford SUV parked under palms outside a small apartment complex. Inside sat a man known locally as Johnny Williams. To his friends, Johnny T. He blended in perfectly. Tan, polite, bilingual. He volunteered at beach cleanups, helped with small fundraisers, even donated to local schools. So when U.S. Marshals and Homeland Security investigations moved in, the neighborhood froze. The arrest was silent. No chase, no shouts, just a door opening and a man raising his hands before anyone asked. He didn't reach for the 9mm pistol on the seat beside him, didn't argue, didn't speak. He simply nodded, as if he'd been expecting them. Agents confirmed the alias matched a forged passport. The fingerprints, though, they told another story. Conor Vincent D'Monte, wanted in Canada since 2011. Neighbors later said they couldn't believe it. They described him as generous, thoughtful, calm, the kind of man who bought toys for local kids at Christmas. No one saw the fugitive in the Philanthropist. What investigators found next didn't match any profile they'd seen. No drugs, no cash, just charity receipts, boxes of them. It wasn't the arrest that stunned them. It was the life he'd built while hiding, organized, public, visible. A man wanted for murder, living as a benefactor in plain sight. He'd run for a decade, yet in the end, he didn't resist. He didn't run from the handcuffs. He ran from something else, something no warrant could explain. What kind of mind can live under its own alias for 11 years and never break character? He'd spent 11 years on the run, and not once did he blink in public. But extradition hearings are different. There's no street to disappear into, no alias to hide behind. Just a courtroom, fluorescent lights, and a name that finally caught up. 2022 to 2023. Puerto Rico. D'Monte fought the system like he'd fought everything else, strategically. He challenged jurisdiction. He appealed conditions. Every motion bought him time, and time was the one thing he'd always weaponized. But the clock doesn't stop forever. January 2024, he abandoned the fight. No statement, no plea, just a signed withdrawal. 2 months later, March 22, 2024, he was flown back to Canada under CFSEU escort. Handcuffed, silent, eyes forward. They called it a victory for law enforcement. But inside CFSEU headquarters, the celebration was quiet. Because the file that reopened wasn't new. It was unfinished. Detectives went back through old UN gang reports, line by line, lead by lead. Buried among the archives were testimonies from Corey Valley's trial. Claims that D'Monte had ordered firebombings targeting addresses later identified as Justice Institute employees. Police never proved it. But the rumor stuck, and in the world D'Monte came from, rumors can kill faster than bullets. What investigators found next, though, didn't fit that story at all. While Canada was hunting him, he'd been building something else. Puerto Rico had known him not as a fugitive, but as a philanthropist. He'd created the Karma Honey Project, a bee conservation initiative that doubled as a local charity. He organized school repairs, Christmas toy drives, PPE donations during COVID. He poured the same precision that once ran drug routes into beehives, logistics, and community projects. Everything registered, everything legal, and no one, not even his closest volunteers, had a clue who he really was. Local news praised him for environmental innovation. Children called him Mr. Johnny, and even the governor of Puerto Rico, Pedro Pierluisi, publicly thanked the Karma Honey Project during a televised event, though his office later clarified they had never actually met. He'd spent years turning criminal precision into community order. The same calm that once orchestrated violence now organized charity. But was it redemption or camouflage? A new purpose or just another plan? He didn't explain, he didn't defend. He just let the two identities hang there. The planner and the philanthropist, each one protecting the other. Do people really change or just get better at hiding what they've always been? October 21st, 2025, BC Supreme Court, Vancouver. For the first time in 14 years, Conor Vincent D'Monte walked into a courtroom under his real name. No alias, no cover, no distance left to hide behind. The cameras outside caught the silence. The man who once commanded a cross-border network didn't speak to reporters. He didn't look at the crowd. He just stood, still unreadable. As the charges were read out again, conspiracy to commit murder, the Bacon Brothers, the Red Scorpions. Names that once echoed across Vancouver's underworld, now reduced to a line on the docket. Then came the word no one expected to hear. Guilty. No defense argument, no plea bargain announcement, just one word, quiet, final, surgical. Investigators said it didn't feel like surrender. It felt like closure. His way, on his terms. Even now, he was controlling the outcome. The Kevin LeClaire murder charge remains open. Prosecutors call it alive. A case that refuses to die, waiting in the shadows for its own conclusion. Sentencing is set for November 12, 2025. Until then, D'Monte sits in custody. A man who turned crime into order and order into silence. After 14 years underground, he finally spoke, but only to say the word guilty. And still, one question hangs. Did he find redemption in bees and charity, or did he just learn how to disguise control as compassion? Was the Karma Honey Project a second life, or the longest con of them all? Because the truth about Conor D'Monte might not be in the crimes he committed, but in the calm that came after. He once built an empire from chaos, then built peace from guilt. The same precision that fueled the underworld now sustained hives, schools, and toy drives. Different tools, same order. The underworld doesn't forgive ambition, it buries it. And when a man once wanted for murder spends his final free years handing out toys, is it atonement or insurance? Maybe the lesson isn't about crime or charity at all. Maybe it's about control and the men who can't live without it. Because every system he ever built, from drug routes to bee farms, had one thing in common. Conor D'Monte always knew who was in charge. And even now, standing before the court, maybe he still does. You're still here? Do what you meant to do earlier, subscribe. And if you made it this far, you know what to do. Hit the bell. There are more cases like this coming, cases where the truth is darker than any fiction. See you in the next one.